Welcome back to the Omar Akbar Anthony podcast YouTube channel. This week we're going to be talking about Loki and why it was all his damn fault! It was all his damn fault. Stay tuned. In Marvel's Avengers Infinity War, the Mad Titan Thanos is able to wipe out half the population of the universe. So basically what's more inconsiderate about turning like half the universe to dust is the fact that he doesn't create like double the cleaning supplies to broom up all the dead people. Super weird. Throughout Avengers Infinity War, a bunch of people are trying to kill Thanos. Everyone from like the Avengers in New York, the Avengers in space, and all the Avengers in Wakanda. But no one was able to successfully stop Thanos. There are four main attempts made by people trying to stop Thanos. The Asgardians in space, the Guardians, Doctor Strange, Iron Man, and Spider-Man on Titan, Star-Lord and Gamora along with the other Guardians on the Collector's ruined home called Knowhere. The other one is Thor's final Stormbreaker shot in Wakanda. One of the most frustrating moments in the movie comes from when Star-Lord stops the Avengers from removing the gauntlet off of Thanos' hand by punching him in the face when he's like super emotional about like, oh, Gamora's dead, yada yada yada. Nonsense. But what happened when he punched Thanos was it broke Mantis's force that was stopping Thanos like in one place, and everyone screamed, "F you, Star-Lord!" The end goal of the movie isn't his fault though. Thanos has been killing populations of the planets for years to come until that point, so it wouldn't be able to stop him entirely because without the gauntlet on him, he'd still continue his like mission, right? He's been killing people like Gamora's planet, Drax's planet. Like he's been doing that stuff already. He has an army. He has a Chitauri from the first Avengers movie, right? So not a big deal. Star-Lord and Gamora's attempt on the planet Knowhere is just the weakest one by far because bubbles. Thor's suffering and maybe his pride a little bit wanted Thanos to know who killed him at the end, which is why he doesn't directly like go for the head or go for the arm that the gauntlet is on. Or when he puts the Stormbreaker into Thanos' chest, he doesn't, stop, take the axe out, cut the arm off first, and then begin his monologue because, emotions and all that. And yeah, it's weird that his character is kind of built take his time and then he goes down monologues after that because monologuing is key. And it's a fair moment, but like that wouldn't have changed. I don't think you can say that Thor as the character would make that decision. Like it's a part of his thing where he wanted him to know, and like he wouldn't just kill him directly, you know what I mean? So that basically brings it down to the Asgardian battle and why the hell this is all Loki's fault. Let's flash back to the events of Thor the First Thor. We found out in the movie that Loki is not an Asgardian, but is actually a frost giant from the realm Jotunheim. That's where all the frost giants live, and it's all Nordic mythology and all that jazz, right? Loki also happens to be the son of Laufey, who is the ruler of the frost giants. When Loki confronts Odin about this, that he's like, hey, what the hell's going on? Who am I? This is what happens.
Stop! Am I cursed?
No.
What am I?
You're my son.
What more than that?
In the aftermath of the battle, I went into the temple and I found a baby. Small for a giant's offspring. Abandoned, suffering, left to die. Laufey's son.
Laufey's son.
The thing Loki is holding on to is the casket of ancient winters. It's the source of the power for the frost giants, right? So from this we basically know that Loki is a frost giant, but he doesn't look like one because Odin casts a spell to change his appearance and make him look very human-like. So we know that Loki is a frost giant who can do this. He also demonstrates his power when he freezes Heimdall on the Bifrost. So in Thor, the third Thor, Thor Ragnarok, we see this.
Fake. Most of this stuff in here is fake. Weak. Smaller than I thought it would be. That's not bad.
So what's the point of all of this? Basically, even though no one would have been able to kill Thanos, the closest anyone ever came to stopping Thanos was Loki. Loki knew what Thanos' goals were more than anyone else in the entire movie besides like Gamora and Nebula, because they're the daughters of Thanos. You could argue that maybe Thor knows it a little bit through rumors here and there, but not really. Loki was integral to the whole Avengers 1 movie because Thanos gives Loki the Tesseract to open the wormhole for the Chitauri to come to Earth and then, hopefully overthrow whatever government is on Earth and just rule Earth, and Loki becomes a ruler then, etc., etc. He was one of the few protagonists to face Thanos at his weakest, the only other being Hulk in this fight where he got his ass handed to him. Thor in this fight where he got his ass handed to him. At this point, Thanos only has the Power Stone, which is still pretty strong, but it was only one Infinity Stone. Later on, Thanos has two Infinity Stones. It's the Power Stone and the Tesseract Stone, which is the Space Stone. But here's the point where Loki could have ended Thanos. It's Loki using a freaking dagger to attack Thanos after the most obvious pause that, some shit is about to go down. It's very indicative of something about to happen. So this is what's frustrating about this. He's a frost giant, right? I don't know why he would have to use human powers where he's clearly 4 feet shorter than Thanos, and I don't know how he was expecting to even reach his neck, because now if you see in this kind of picture, he's barely reaching his neck anyways with full extensions of his arms. So I don't know if he planned to jump and slice, but anyways, that's a failed attempt. And you see in the next scene that Thanos has held him up by his neck and he's kind of choking him. But for some reason, Loki at this point, just instead of using his frost giant powers, decides to monologue. I don't know what's with the Asgardian boys and their monologues, but it's a theme that we will unfortunately see in this entire movie. But there's a great emotion, so we let it slide. So I feel like at this point he should have just taken out one of those ice daggers from his arms, and the arm that's really connected to his arm. No. So while he's being choked, he has a closer reach to Thanos. It's basically Thanos' arm's length to kind of reach his throat, and he should have taken out an ice dagger and just slit this dude. And I know what you're gonna say. You're gonna say, oh, he's got 2 Infinity Stones now, and Thanos would have just stopped this stupid attempt. But hold up. Thanos clearly demonstrates the way he engages his Infinity Gauntlet to access its powers, right? He has the Power Stone, and when you look at him, when you look at Loki now attacking Thanos, you see that he's clenched up his fist and the Infinity Stone is glowing. So that indicates that in order for him to use the powers, he needs to clench his fist completely, like a fist, and then he'll be able to use the powers. But if you see from the next scene, he clearly is holding Loki with the same hand that he has his Infinity Gauntlet on. So what does that mean? Well, that means if he wants to use the Infinity Gauntlet at this stage, he needs to close his fist with Loki's neck in between it. In the end, he does crush Loki's neck, but he doesn't I don't know, there's no blood involved because PG-13, and it's very his neck is still there. It's just broken on the inside, like every engineer. So basically, since Thanos wouldn't be able to use his Infinity Stones and Infinity Gauntlet, Loki had a clearer shot at getting Thanos. And yes, he's being choked and he's clearly dying, but he had the physical effort to kind of start monologuing for a while, and in that time he could have just made a very effective ice dagger and then just let that ice dagger go right through the throat, and end of story right there. Avengers Infinity War ends 10 minutes into the runtime. So there's one major Marvel continuity plot hole that I already recognized before some people start nitpicking, which is in order for Loki to use his frost giant powers, even in the clip where he freezes Heimdall, he does have the casket of ancient winters in front of him, and then kind of harnesses that to use it. And he didn't have that in the scene where he's being killed by Thanos. He only has the Tesseract. What else was with the Tesseract in the weapons vault room when Loki was casually strolling past, and then that caught his eye? I think I clearly remember there was the casket of ancient winters right next to it, along with a fake Infinity Gauntlet, which everyone knows is fake because it has all the 6 stones in it, and the Tesseract is also there, which is known to have the Space Stone inside it. So I know people aren't that stupid on Asgard. They get it, right? I mean, they get it. So when Loki is passing through the vault and he has to put the fire skull onto the eternal fire or whatever, and he passes by and he stops when he looks at the Tesseract, I feel because the casket of ancient winters is also right there, and Loki's very nostalgic about his people, Jotunheim, and he mentions it twice in the scene with Thanos, as seen here.
Well, for one thing, I'm not Asgardian.
I, Loki, Prince of Asgard, the rightful king of Jotunheim.
So you'll see this guy is very he loves his heritage. He says, I'm not of Asgard once. He says, I am the rightful heir of Jotunheim because he's Laufey's son, and he really loves this. So I do not for 1 second believe that when he went to the vault of weapons, that he did not also pick up the casket of ancient winters. Because if you go back to the video with Heimdall in Thor 1, the first Thor, before Heimdall attacks Loki, Loki's walking up to him on the Bifrost, and he only has the spear and his other hand is free. And as soon as Heimdall starts to attack him, he kind of magically whips out the casket of ancient winters through thin air and uses it to harness the powers. So he does the same thing with the Tesseract as well. So there's no it's not he has 2 hands and his hands are too full and he can't pick up the second item or whatever, you know what I mean? He must have just hidden it in another realm he did with the Tesseract in Avengers Infinity War. So for 1 second, I do not believe that he did not pick up that ancient of casket winters. Was it casket of ancient winters? Okay. Exhausting. Thank you. So this, I believe, is the closest moment anyone had to ending Thanos and ending his mission for good. The problem with all the attempts was very simple. They were all not worthy. Thank you for listening to this episode